What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are taking a look at Brad Holmes' drafting by the numbers, the analytics. So let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we're looking at it by the numbers. I tried to come up with some numbers here. I tried to do some information digging for you guys. Now it's going to be confusing, so just hang tight. But I was actually reading this article by the Detroit Lions after they hired Brad Holmes, and one of the reasons, well, Rod Wood brought up that they liked him is because how he uses technology and analytics when it's coming to finding prospects and things like that for the draft. So I thought, okay, let's use our own analytics here. Let's take a look at the numbers. How successful is Brad Holmes in his drafts? Now, I probably should do this with like Bob Quinn as well. That way I can give you guys a comparison. If you want that, I can, but I didn't. Reason being is because I don't know exactly which picks he made and which he didn't. Like, for example, he wasn't a GM. I think he was like 5th in power there. So we don't actually know if he wanted any of these guys they ever drafted, right? We know he pushed for certain players, things like that, but we don't really know. So we're just going to assume in this video, because this is where his expertise is. He was running the draft board for the last 8 years. We're going to assume in this video that he made all these draft picks, okay? Just to make it simple. We're just going to assume that, okay? And we're going to see how successful his drafts were since 2013. Now, why 2013? Well, 2013 is when he became the director of college scouting, which is his highest role he's been in. So I want to start there. I don't want to go back to where, well, he was a national scout. Like, okay, those, you know, I'm going to go to his highest level, which was 2013 to 2020, and now he's with the Detroit Lions. And we're going to take a look at how the drafts fared through that time period, okay? So let's get right into it, all right? Let's start off with the first round. Now, the first thing we're taking a look at is how many of his draft picks are still on a team today, where this is as of 2020. It's not, hey, are they going to be on there 2021, because that's guessing. As of 2020, were these players on an NFL roster? Just that simple, right? Well, let's start with the first round. Out of 6 picks he has made in the first round from 2013 to 2020, 5 of those picks as of 2020, as of last season, were on an NFL roster. So 5 of the 6 draft picks. It's pretty good. You would expect that, though. It's a first-round pick. They should be on an NFL roster. Now, keep in mind, when you go back to 2013, it's harder to have the guy still on the roster than it is in 2020, right? 2020, you're pretty much all on the roster. So just keep that in mind as we go through it. In the second round, out of 6 second-round draft picks, all 6 of those players were at least on an NFL roster as of last season. Now, if you look at some of these guys, you'll see maybe they opted out due to COVID. Maybe they had a season-end injury. Doesn't mean they're not on the roster. They were still on the roster as last season. They just didn't play because of those 2 reasons. But on a roster, as of 2020, 6 of 6 in the second round. So that's good. On to the third round, he's had 13 draft picks in the third round since 2013. And 9 of those draft picks are still on an NFL roster as of 2020. On to the fourth round. Now we're into day 3 of the draft. Out of 11 fourth-round picks, 7 of those draft picks were on an NFL roster as of 2020. The fifth round, only 5 draft picks here, but 3 of those picks are on an NFL roster as of 2020. On to the sixth round. These are the late rounds. The sixth round, out of 14 players drafted, 7. So half of the players drafted in the sixth round were on an NFL roster as of last season, which is pretty good. It's pretty good, but you got to keep in mind, again, how many of those 6th round picks came recently. A lot of them came in 2018. 4 6th round picks came in 2018. So it's still pretty impressive. And we know about this season, Jordan Fuller, who he really pushed for, that he did really well. He started a lot of games for them as well. And then finally into the 7th round, out of 13 draft picks in the 7th round, 7 of those guys are on an NFL roster as of 2020. So a little bit over half of those draft picks. Now, I was going to go by starting, but I didn't really know how to do that. Like, because certain players would play like 10 games and start 3 or start 4. And I was like, okay, what is that? Is that a starter? Is that not? Should I go over a majority? Maybe we'll do another update on this and we'll say, okay, you had to start more than half your games you played. I don't know if you guys want to see that. But those are the numbers by round. Now, let's add that all together. What do we get? Well, you get out of 68 draft picks in total, that's 68 picks from 2013 to 2020's draft, 44 of those draft picks as of 2020 were on an NFL roster. That means 64.7% of his draft picks are on a roster as of last season. That's pretty good. 64%. I mean, it sounds pretty good, right? Over half. In the first couple rounds, obviously pretty much flawless there. Only missed 1 player that's not on the roster as of last season, as it should be. And then in the late rounds, to be honest with you, I mean, to go 14 for 27 in the 6th and 7th round is pretty good. I mean, that just sounds pretty good to me. So if you can hit on half your draft picks. Now, let's go even further with it. How many of these draft picks at least started 1 season in the NFL? Out of the 68 draft picks that he's made, or we'll say he's made, how many of those picks at least gave me 1 year of starting? The number I came up with is 24, at least 1 year. Now, some of these guys could have started 7 years, 6 years, some of them maybe only just 1 year, but at least 1 year, 24 of those picks have started. That means 35% of his draft picks have at least started one season in the NFL. 35%. Now, drafting is difficult, but you're basically saying that one out of every 3 draft picks will at least start once, at least have one starting season. That basically means you were a primary starter on that team. You started more games than you played, you started the majority of the games that you played in, okay? So as a primary starter, 35% of the time, he's drafting a guy that started in at least one season. I would say that's pretty good. I would say that's not too bad, 35%. We're going to look at starting seasons. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go round by round. So for example, third round. How many starting seasons altogether has he accumulated in third round draft picks? So for example, he drafted 7 players in the third round. And in total, they had 14 starting seasons together. That's the number, right? That's the number, 14. So 14 starting seasons in the third round drafted. That's what we're going to basically doing here. So it could be that one guy started 9 seasons, the other guy started 0, a couple guys started 2 and 1, it equals 14. All right, that's what we're doing here just really quickly, just for more analytics. So in the first round, 32, this is pretty impressive. Out of only 6 draft picks in the first round, 32 starting seasons combined. That means on average about 5 to 6 starting seasons for first round draft picks. 32. And it's since 2013. So it's only about 7 seasons that they've been able to play in. So almost every single season. That's pretty impressive, man. I got to say, first round had some success there, that's for sure. But why not that many first round picks? Well, like I said, they haven't had them. Last 4 years haven't had a first round pick. On to the second round. Now this one is a little bit not as good as you would hope. Something about the second round, man. In the second round, only 10 starting seasons combined out of 6 drafted players. You would want that to be higher. I would definitely like that to be higher. That is pretty low. Into the third round, 17 starting seasons out of 13 players drafted. Okay, the mid round. Now on to day 3. In the fourth round, 6 starting seasons out of 11 players. Okay, on to the fifth round, only two starting seasons out of 5 players drafted. Now, that's not a lot of players drafted, 2 starting seasons. Honestly, the 5th round, I mean, it's difficult once you get to this late in the draft to just find anybody. This one's pretty good, though. In the 6th round, 7 starting seasons between 14 players. Now, that means every other player at least started one season that he's drafted in the 6th round. To me, that's pretty good. 6th round is usually a bust every time. That's pretty solid. And then finally, in the 7th round, 0 out of 13. So he has not been able to find a starter in the 7th round. So that's something that's got to be on his bucket list. So that is the numbers. And finally, people like Pro Bowls. I don't like Pro Bowl that much because it's a popularity contest. Doesn't equal how good you are. But just for some perspective, how good has it been in the Pro Bowls drafting? Well, since 2013. Now, if you go over his whole career, you'll see Lions put up the thing, I think, that said 25 Pro Bowlers. Okay, well, that's not individuals, right? And that's also adding them all together. For me, what I'm doing here is I'm going back only to 2013 when he was director of college scouting. And in that time, he was drafted from 2013 to 2020, 4 individual Pro Bowl players, 4 different Pro Bowl players. Jared Goff, Pharoh Cooper, Todd Gurley, and Aaron Donald, of course. Aaron Donald, 7 Pro Bowl appearances. Todd Gurley, 3. Cooper, 1. Goff, 2. So that would be 13. That'd be 13 in total. But realistically, it's 4 individual players that have made the Pro Bowl since 2013 drafted. If you want that in perspective, here you go. Bob Quinn, before he was hired to Detroit from 2012 to 2016 as the pro scouting director, he drafted 2 individual Pro Bowl players. So 4 to 2, obviously a little bit bigger of a sample size for Brad Holmes. So that's just to put it in perspective a little bit. So those are the numbers, all right? I know they're confusing, but I tried to give y'all some extra information. I tried. Are you confused? Put it in the comment section if you are. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. Thank you, Brad, for watching, and I'm out.